welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a horror movie review, although it could be classed as a B-movie review as well. So we're going to be having a look at the 2011 film called Zombie Apocalypse. Now, the subtitle of this film in some countries is actually 2012 Zombie Apocalypse. And ironically, there is actually a couple of other films called Zombie Apocalypse that came out around the same sort of time. So it can get confusing. This one is starring Ving Rhames, if it helps. So this was a sci-fi original film, and it was produced by the company Asylum. And if you're aware of the company Asylum, what they tend to do is make what they call mockbusters, which are really cash-ins on popular franchises that happen to be in the cinema at the same time. For example, you'll get Transformers out in the cinema, and you have Transmorphers out on an Asylum video or DVD release. Now, as far as I can tell, this one isn't really trying to ape any particular film, although I suspect it may be due to the fact that obviously the popularity of the TV show Walking Dead, which I think this does have some similarities to, is possibly the reason why it's in existence. And obviously zombie films, as a general rule, are relatively inexpensive to make. Now, so this is, at the moment, you'll probably say it's run-of-the-mill zombie film, and it probably is fair to say that's a true assessment. However, there are a few things that I did like about this particular film, and I think even new things that I think actually brought to the table. One of the things I did like is actually it gave different classes to zombies. And what I mean by that was, in some films you have fast zombies, like the remake of The Dawn of the Dead. Some films you'll have slow zombies, like the traditional George Romero, Light and the Living Dead type ones. So this one you actually get both. And the explanation is that the older the zombie gets, and the more decomposed it gets, essentially it turns into what they call a shambler, and can't really move as fast and is less of a threat. Whilst newer zombies or fresher zombies are what they call runners, and obviously are that much more dangerous. One of the other little sort of original things that I thought was quite good was when the survivors enter new houses, they go in using their nose and sort of sniffing the air to see if they can smell rotten flesh, well, hence zombies, which I thought again was a nice little neat touch. I mean that there was one other original thing that was in this film, which I can't decide whether it was good or a bad thing, and I'll come on to that in a minute and I'll look at some of the negative points. So it is a relatively low budget film, or a very low budget film to be fair. And it uses a lot of CGI effects, some of which are quite good. And I will have to say, I will base this on the budget. So the actual scenery that you'll get when it has like wide shots, you see the cityscapes and you'll see burning buildings and destruction, I actually think it looks quite impressive given the budget. So I was quite impressed with that. So some of the negative stuff, and we'll lead on with CGI as well. For some reason, they choose to use a lot of CGI blood. Now, to me, it looks like it was an afterthought. They had made the film, and we'll have a bit more blood here, and it was just added CGI blood. I don't know why they couldn't have built squibs. I mean, there is obviously some CGI blood on the faces of the zombies and things like that, but when people are getting shot, zombies are getting shot or hit with swords and stuff, they use a lot of CGI blood, and it's quite jarring, and it kind of takes you out of the picture a little bit. Another sort of gripe I had is the first half of the film, they seem to have unlimited ammo. Now, they do mention later on about picking up bullets and stuff like that, but you never ever see them reload, and that kind of bothered me as well. And they also, essentially, I'll come on to the story in just a second, but they meet the main group of people meet a secondary group of people who tend to use sort of bows and arrows and crossbows, and they actually state if you can pick up an arrow safely, do so. However, they never actually do that, and they literally run past bodies of zombies that they've shot where there's no other zombies around, so they have time to pick arrows up, but they never actually do. The other major gripe I had was some of the acting in this is quite poor. There's an actress called Leslie Ann Brandt who plays a character called Cassie, who is probably one of the main characters, and I think she's absolutely terrible. Very, very poor acting. She's acting like really it's a sort of Ving Rhames. She's a kind of like, not exactly a love interest, but a potential love interest to Ving Rhames' character. And Ving Rhames can act. This woman cannot act. I don't know what she's been. She looks familiar, but I'm not really too sure what she's been in before. But not all that impressed with her acting, and the acting of the rest of the cast was kind of negligible in some respects, but she was the standout one for certainly for poor acting. Now, the next criticism I have is really I can kind of forgive because it's a low budget film. You have to sort of give it some sort of leeway for this, and obviously that's although it's a zombie apocalypse, there's virtually no like cars disused and sort of abandoned and then roads. There's not really much in the way of like bodies lying around. You see a few, but you see long stretches of road where there's literally not a car to be seen. And obviously, if you've seen The Walking Dead and things like that, you'll see burnt out cars and stuff scattered all over the place. But there's virtually none of that. Another sort of again, this is a bit of a nitpicky gripe, is that there's one scene where they come across like a huge bodybuilder zombie, and there's a woman fighting him using a sword, and he's literally dodging the swipes, but then he gets killed with a chainsaw that he seems to walk straight into. So, again, inconsistent there. So that's the sort of negatives and the positives. Coming on to the story briefly, and then I want to talk about one other thing that's in the film. So the story is not much to tell, hence why I haven't really spoken about it in the first hand. It's essentially a group of survivors trying to get to point A to point B. On the way, they kind of pick up a few, and a few get killed. But essentially, it's a group of survivors trying to get to the coast where there's apparently the promise of a zombie-free land, and they have to go through, various sort of districts and what have you to sort of get to there. And that is the plot, simple as. There's a few sort of stops on the way, but there's no real subplot in it, to be honest. There's everyone gets on, all the human characters, there's no real conflict between any of them. They all seem to get on fine. So there's not much else to it, to be honest with you. Now, you might not want any more in a zombie film, but sometimes it is nice to have a little bit of reflection. So now comes the elephant in the room. So I have mixed feelings about this. What we have is zombie tigers. So the last sort of really see in the film, they're waiting for the ferry and they're attacked by 2 zombie tigers. Now, I have to give them props for trying to make new one here. And I don't ever recall seeing zombie tigers before, so I have to tip my hat and say that's, again, it's an original idea and it's and fair play for doing that. But they're all CGI and it's pretty terrible CGI. Especially, I'll try and put a still of a zombie or tiger on the video, but the actual when you see them moving, they look weightless, completely not like they shouldn't be there. The movement they look like stop motion, very strange, and I actually would have preferred them not to be there and maybe just have something else or just more zombies really if need be, but. It's a mixed things because I do appreciate them having a try. It's almost like the end of level, or the end of game boss almost. And it does seem like that. So I have mixed feelings about that particular scene, but it's not particularly good. Again, you could argue the budget is obviously going to be fairly small for this film. So can we excuse it? Maybe. I mean, if you've seen sci-fi films before, they tend to have the standard CGI monster at the end, and it's never particularly very good, which is a shame because the zombie makeup is genuinely fairly good, although you do notice they have quite zombified faces, but their arms seem to be relatively unscathed by the ravages of time and whatnot. So there you go. So it's not a bad zombie film. It's certainly better than I was expecting. I've been sort of meaning to watch this one for a while, but I just kind of think, oh god, it's going to be a sci-fi movie, they all seem to follow the same sort of formula, and I've kind of had enough of those sort of modern sci-fi films that are on the Sci-Fi Channel, is what I mean by that. But I was a little bit pleasantly surprised. It follows the standard zombie tropes, really, apart from a couple of like little flashes of originality there. But certainly an entertaining film. It hasn't got the depth of like the Romero films and things like that, but that's a bit of a time waster for one evening if you fancy a bit of undead action. I'll give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Have you seen it, and what's your favourite zombie film? Leave me a comment. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.